Billionaire catches cleaner's mute daughter whispering to his paralyzed son. What he did next will break your heart. Marcus Wellington didn't believe in miracles anymore. Not since the accident that left his 7-year-old son, Ethan, paralyzed from the neck down. The billionaire tech mogul had bought the best doctors, the most advanced equipment, the finest therapists money could offer. But Ethan remained trapped in silence, eyes open but unreachable. The boy who once filled their mansion with laughter now lay motionless in a hospital bed, staring at nothing. It was 11:47 p.m. when Marcus heard it, a voice, soft as silk, floating through the crack in Ethan's bedroom door. Impossible. The night nurse had left hours ago. His heart hammering, Marcus crept down the hallway of his empty mansion, guided only by that mysterious whisper. What he saw stopped him cold. Elena Rodriguez, the cleaning woman's 12-year-old daughter, sat cross-legged beside Ethan's bed, her small hand wrapped around his lifeless fingers. Her lips moved rapidly, and though no sound escaped them, Elena had been mute since birth. Ethan's eyes were different. They were alive. Tears streamed down the boy's cheeks as Elena's hands danced in signs, her mouth forming silent words with an intensity that needed no voice. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway. His son, who hadn't responded to anyone in 8 months, was crying. And somehow, impossibly, Elena was reaching him. Before we continue with this heart-wrenching story, if you believe in the power of human connection and second chances, please hit that like button. Subscribe so you never miss stories that remind us what truly matters in life. And comment below with the time and city you're watching from. Let's see how far this message of hope travels around the world. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The rain had come without warning that October night. Sophia Wellington had been singing along to the radio, her voice filling their Mercedes with warmth. 7-year-old Ethan giggled in the back seat, mimicking his mother's off-key notes. Marcus, driving, had reached over to squeeze his wife's hand. A simple gesture, a moment of perfect contentment. Then came the flash of headlights in the wrong lane, the screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal, and silence. Marcus woke 3 days later in a hospital bed, his body intact, but his world shattered. The doctors spoke in hushed, careful tones. Sophia hadn't survived the impact. Ethan was alive, but the spinal injury was catastrophic. Paralyzed from the neck down. Potential brain damage. The prognosis grim. "We've done everything we can," Dr. Harrison said, his weathered face etched with sympathy Marcus didn't want. "Now we wait and see." But 8 months later, there was nothing to see. Ethan lay in a hospital bed Marcus had installed in the master bedroom, now converted into a medical suite. The machines beeped their monotonous rhythm. The boy's chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. But Ethan himself was gone, retreating somewhere deep inside where no amount of money or expertise could follow. Marcus had tried everything. He'd flown in specialists from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and Switzerland. He'd installed experimental neural stimulation equipment. He'd hired the top physical therapists in the country. Each one examined Ethan, ran their tests, and delivered the same verdict with varying degrees of gentleness. The damage was too severe. Ethan would likely never walk again, never feed himself, never live independently. But the worst part wasn't the paralysis. It was the absence. Ethan's hazel eyes, so much like Sophia's, stared at the ceiling, seeing nothing, reflecting nothing. Marcus would sit beside him for hours, talking about school, about the tech company, about memories of Sophia. He'd play Ethan's favorite songs, read his favorite books, show him videos of happier times. Nothing. The mansion that had once echoed with Ethan's laughter and Sophia's warmth now felt like a mausoleum. Marcus walked its halls like a ghost, surrounded by wealth that meant nothing, success that tasted like ash. He'd built a tech empire worth billions, revolutionized cloud computing, been featured on magazine covers as a visionary. None of it could bring back his wife. None of it could reach his son. At night, Marcus would sit in Ethan's room, holding the boy's limp hand and talk into the void. "I'm still here, buddy. Dad's still here. I'm not going anywhere." But he might as well have been talking to himself. The staff came and went, Nurses, therapists, housekeepers, all maintaining professional distance from the tragedy that permeated every room. Marcus had specifically requested night shifts for the cleaning crew. He couldn't bear the pitying looks during daylight hours, couldn't stand the way people's voices changed when they saw Ethan, all gentle condescension and careful optimism. He wanted privacy for his grief. Across the city, in a cramped two-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where sirens were the night's soundtrack, Maria Rodriguez sat at her kitchen table, drowning in bills. The electricity notice was red, final warning before disconnection. Rent was 3 weeks overdue. Elena's school had sent another letter about unpaid lunch fees. Maria's hands trembled as she sorted the envelopes into piles. Urgent, very urgent, and catastrophic. It had been 14 months since Carlos died. 14 months since her husband ran into a burning apartment building and carried out a 6-year-old boy, then went back for the boy's grandmother and never came out. They called him a hero. The city gave him a medal posthumously. The mayor said beautiful words at his funeral. None of it paid the bills. Maria had worked as a hotel housekeeper, a restaurant dishwasher, a grocery store stocker, sometimes holding 2 jobs at once. But it was never enough, not with Elena's special needs. Her daughter required speech therapy, specialized education support, and the expensive communication device that insurance refused to cover. Elena sat across from her now, doing homework with fierce concentration, her dark curls falling across her face. At 12, she was bright, creative, and kind, everything Carlos had been. But she'd been born without the ability to speak, and the world wasn't kind to different children. Maria watched her daughter's hands move in practice signs, answering the questions in her math workbook. Elena had learned sign language at 3, mastering it with a determination that broke and remade Maria's heart daily. She typed her class assignments, used her phone to communicate with teachers, and navigated a world designed for voices she didn't have. And she did it all with a smile that reminded Maria so much of Carlos it physically hurt. The job posting had appeared on the community center bulletin board like an answered prayer. Night cleaning position, Wellington Estate. Private household, excellent pay, discretion required. The salary was triple what Maria made at her other jobs combined. She called immediately. The interview took place in Marcus Wellington's home office, a room larger than Maria's entire apartment. Marcus himself was nothing like the magazine photos she'd seen. Those showed a confident man with an easy smile. The person who interviewed her was hollow-eyed and gaunt, his expensive suit hanging loosely on a frame that had forgotten about food. The hours are 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., 6 nights a week, Marcus said, his voice flat. You'll clean the main floors, guest wings, and common areas. The east wing is off-limits. That's my son's medical suite. You'll never enter that area. Is that clear? Yes, Mr. Wellington. I require complete discretion. No gossip, no photos, no discussion of anything you see here with anyone outside this house. Of course, sir. The pay is $30 an hour. You'll start immediately. He slid a contract across the desk without meeting her eyes. Maria's breath caught. $30 an hour. That was salvation. I accept, she said quickly. Then, hesitatingly, sir, I have a daughter. 12 years old. I don't have childcare for night shifts. She's very well behaved. She could do her homework in the kitchen, stay out of the way completely. You wouldn't even know she was here. Marcus's jaw tightened. For a moment, Maria thought he'd refuse. Then he waved a dismissive hand. Fine, but the same rules apply to her. No wandering, no disturbances. Thank you, Mr. Wellington. Thank you so much. He'd already turned back to his computer, the interview over. That night, Maria broke down crying in relief. Elena held her mother tight, not needing words to understand. Elena's first impression of the Wellington mansion was that it looked sad, not run down. Everything gleamed with expensive perfection, but sad, like a beautiful dress worn to a funeral. She sat at the enormous kitchen island, her homework spread out, while her mother started in the west wing. The house was so quiet Elena could hear her own breathing. Back home, their apartment building hummed with life. Neighbors arguing, babies crying, music bleeding through thin walls. Here, The silence pressed down like a weight. Around midnight, Elena's pencil rolled off the marble countertop. She hopped down to retrieve it and paused, hearing something. A beep. Regular, mechanical, medical equipment her mind supplied. She'd heard similar sounds when visiting her grandmother in the hospital before she passed. Curiosity pulled her down the hallway. Her mother had said to stay in the kitchen, but Elena wasn't really leaving, just exploring a little. The beeping grew louder, guiding her to a door left slightly ajar. Elena peeked through the crack. The room was dimmed, but she could see a hospital bed surrounded by machines. And in the bed, a boy about her age, maybe younger. He lay absolutely still, his eyes open and staring at the ceiling. IVs ran into his thin arms. A ventilator hissed softly. Elena's heart clenched with recognition. She knew what it was like to be trapped. Hers was a silence she'd been born with, one she'd learned to navigate. But this boy, he was imprisoned in his own body. She didn't enter, not that first night. She just watched, understanding in a way words couldn't capture. He was alone, so terribly alone, even surrounded by expensive equipment and careful medical care. When Maria found her daughter an hour later, Elena was asleep at the kitchen table, her cheek pressed against her math homework. But Maria noticed her daughter's expression, thoughtful, sad, determined. "What is it, Mija?" Maria signed. Elena's hands moved slowly. "There's a boy here who needs a friend." Maria's breath caught. She pulled Elena close. "Mr. Wellington's son. The accident." She signed carefully. "We're here to work, baby, not to intrude." Elena nodded, but her mind was already made up. Some people needed to be reached, whether or not permission was given. Elena waited until her mother was deep in the second-floor bathrooms, the sound of cleaning supplies safely distant. Her heart pounded as she pushed open Ethan's door, wider this time. She'd spent 2 weeks thinking about him, the boy trapped in silence. During the day, at school where other kids still avoided her, because speaking was hard when your classmate couldn't answer back, she thought about him. At night, doing homework in the Wellington's kitchen, she thought about him. Tonight, she decided she would do more than watch. Elena approached the bed carefully, respectfully, the way one might approach a sacred space. Ethan's eyes were open, as always, staring at nothing. Up close, she could see he had freckles across his nose, and his hair, brown with sun-bleached streaks, hadn't been cut in a while. "Hi," Elena mouthed, then caught herself. "Habit." She signed instead, even though she knew he couldn't understand. "My name is Elena. I'm going to sit with you for a while, if that's okay." No response. She hadn't expected one. Elena settled into the chair beside his bed, folding her legs beneath her. For a long moment, she just sat, letting him get used to her presence. Then, slowly, she reached out and placed her hand over his on the blanket. His skin was warm, alive. She'd half expected him to feel cold, as lifeless as he looked. But he was warm, and that gave her hope. "I can't talk either," Elena signed, her other hand moving while one stayed on his. "Not with my voice. I was born without it. People think that means I don't have anything to say, but they're wrong. I have so much to say. I think maybe you do too." She told him about her day, about the math test she'd aced and the girl who'd mocked her in the cafeteria for using her phone to communicate, about the book she was reading, a fantasy novel about a kingdom where music was magic, about her father, Carlos, who'd been the bravest person she'd ever known. He saved people. Elena signed, her movements passionate, even when it meant he couldn't save himself. Mama says that's what heroes do. They choose others, even when it costs everything. Ethan's eyes didn't move. His chest rose and fell with the ventilator's rhythm. Elena didn't mind. She stayed for 20 minutes that first night, just talking or signing or mouthing words in her silent way, before slipping out when she heard her mother's footsteps. She returned the next night, and the next. Elena had developed a routine. She'd do her homework quickly, then spend 30 to 40 minutes with Ethan while her mother cleaned the far wings. She brought things to share, drawings she'd made, books she loved, once a smooth stone she'd found that fit perfectly in her palm. "This is for you," she signed, placing the stone in Ethan's limp hand, curling his fingers around it gently. "It's a worry stone. When I'm stressed, I rub it, and somehow it helps. Maybe it'll help you too. She'd started noticing things. Small things others might miss. The way Ethan's breathing changed, just slightly, when she entered the room. How his eyes, while still unfocused, seemed to track toward her voice, or rather, toward her presence, since she made no sound. Tonight, she was teaching him signs. It felt presumptuous, maybe even foolish, but Elena persisted. She'd take his hand gently, manipulating his fingers into shapes. This is friend, she showed him, hooking her index fingers together. Then she moved his fingers into the same position. See? You and me. Friends. His hand was dead weight in hers, but she continued undeterred. Elena told him about her father's funeral, something she'd never told anyone. I didn't cry, she signed. Everyone expected me to, but I couldn't. Not because I wasn't sad. I was so sad I couldn't breathe. But crying felt like admitting he was really gone. If I didn't cry, maybe it wasn't real yet. She paused, her hand still. I know you're in there, she signed, her movements fierce. I know everyone thinks you're gone, but you're not. You're just hiding. And that's okay. Hide as long as you need. I'll be here when you're ready. She brought a picture book that night, one of her childhood favorites, worn and loved. She showed him the pictures, describing them with her hands and expressions, her face animated in ways that didn't require sound. The story was about a girl who lost her voice to a sea, but found that she could still communicate through kindness, through presence, through love. Words aren't everything, Elena signed. They're not even the most important thing. My father never learned much sign language, just the basics, but I always knew he loved me. It was in how he looked at me, how he made my favorite breakfast on weekends, how he'd fall asleep in the chair by my bed when I was sick. That's communication too, the truest kind. That night, as she stood to leave, she squeezed Ethan's hand. Good night, friend. See you tomorrow. And for the first time in 6 weeks, she felt the smallest change. Nothing a doctor would measure, nothing a machine would register. But she felt it, a subtle shift in the quality of Ethan's stillness, as if he was listening more intentionally. Elena smiled all the way home. It had been a terrible day at school. Elena had given a presentation, reading from her phone while her classmates listened, about accessibility technology. Afterward, a boy named Derek had mimicked her, exaggerating silent mouth movements and waving his hands mockingly. The class had laughed. Even some kids who were usually nice had laughed. The teacher had stopped it, of course, and Derek got attention. But the damage was done. Elena had spent lunch in the library, alone, feeling the familiar ache of being different, being other, being too much trouble for people to bother understanding. That night, at 11:47 p.m., she sat beside Ethan's bed and let the frustration pour out. Her hands moved with unusual intensity, her face showing the hurt she'd hidden all day. I understand what it's like when people look through you, she signed. When they see your difference before they see you. When they decide you're not worth the effort of understanding. That's when she saw it. A single tear sliding down Ethan's cheek from his left eye. Elena froze, her hands suspended mid-sign. She stared, her heart hammering. Had she imagined it? No. Another tear followed, then another. Silent tears streaming down his face. The first real response she'd seen in 3 months. Ethan, she mouthed, moving closer. Ethan, can you hear me? More tears. His eyes, still staring at the ceiling, were wet with them. Elena's own eyes filled. She gently wiped his tears with her sleeve, her hands trembling. It's okay, she signed, even though he couldn't see her hands from his angle. It's okay to cry. It means you're still here. It means you're still fighting. She kept signing, kept talking through her movements, through her expressions. She told him about her father's last words to her mother. Take care of our girl. Tell her I love her. Tell her to be brave. I'm trying to be brave, Elena signed. But it's hard. So if you need to hide, I get it. But please, Ethan, please don't hide forever. The world needs you. Your dad needs you. I need my friend. More tears fell from Ethan's eyes, faster now, each one a small miracle. Elena grabbed his hand, squeezing it. You're in there. I knew it. I knew you were in there. She was so focused on Ethan, so overwhelmed with the breakthrough that she didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway, didn't sense the presence in the doorway, didn't realize that Marcus Wellington had been standing there watching for the past 30 seconds, until his voice, sharp with shock and fear, shattered the moment. "What are you doing to my son? We're halfway through this incredible journey. I need to know, are you as moved by Elena's kindness as I am? Comment below and tell me. What would you have done in Elena's situation? Would you have reached out to Ethan, or would you have stayed away? Also, what do you think Marcus will do next? Drop your predictions in the comments." Now, let's continue with the moment that changes everything. Marcus had been working in his office, reviewing quarterly reports that might as well have been written in another language for all the attention he paid them. The numbers blurred together, meaningless. Everything was meaningless. Around 11:30, he'd stood to get water and heard it, a sound he couldn't quite identify. Not voices exactly, more like movement, presence, coming from Ethan's room. His first thought was the night nurse had come back. But no, she'd left hours ago. His second thought was an intruder, and his heart rate spiked as he moved silently down the hallway. Through the crack in Ethan's door, he saw her, the cleaning woman's daughter, Elena, sitting in the chair beside Ethan's bed, her hands moving in animated signs, her face expressive in a way that needed no sound. She was holding Ethan's hand, leaning close, and Marcus's brain stuttered to process it. Ethan was crying. His son, who hadn't shown a flicker of emotion in 8 months, had tears streaming down his face. And Elena was wiping them gently, her own face wet with tears, her hands continuing their silent speech. Marcus stood paralyzed, trying to understand what he was seeing. The doctors had said Ethan's emotional centers were damaged, that he couldn't process or express feelings. Yet there he was, unmistakably crying. And this girl, this child who shouldn't even be in his son's room, had somehow reached him when every expert in the world had failed. Fear and shock overrode logic. "What are you doing to my son?" The words erupted before Marcus could think. Elena jumped like she'd been electrocuted, her eyes wide with terror. She scrambled back from the bed, trembling. Footsteps pounded down the hallway. Maria appeared, her face going white as she took in the scene. "Mr. Wellington, I'm so sorry. Elena, Veniki Aora." She grabbed her daughter's arm, pulling her toward the door. But then, no, the world stopped. Marcus's legs nearly gave out. That sound, broken, guttural, barely human, had come from Ethan. His son. His silent, unresponsive son. "Ethan." "No," the boy said again, the word clearer this time, though still labored. His eyes had shifted, no longer staring at nothing. They were looking at Elena, focused for the first time in 8 months. Maria's grip on Elena's arm slackened, her mouth falling open. Elena stood frozen between her mother and the bed, tears still on her face. "Ethan," Marcus's voice cracked. He moved to his son's bedside, his hands hovering, afraid to touch him, afraid this was a dream that would shatter. "Ethan, can you hear me?" The boy's eyes moved slowly to his father's face. The effort was visible, monumental. "Dad." The single word broke Marcus. He collapsed to his knees beside the bed, his hand covering his mouth, sobs tearing from his chest. Oh God, Ethan, you're here. You're still here." Elena pulled free from her mother's grip, gently this time, and returned to Ethan's bedside. Her eyes asked permission from Marcus, who could only nod, unable to speak. She took Ethan's hand again and signed something, her movements slow and clear. Ethan's fingers twitched in her grasp, a tiny movement barely perceptible. But Elena's face lit up like sunrise. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and typed. "He's been able to hear and understand everything this whole time. He's just been scared and sad and felt like he wasn't wanted. But he's in there. He's always been in there." Marcus read the words through his tears, each one landing like a blow. "Scared? Why would he be scared?" "Ethan, buddy, I've been here every day. I've never left you." Elena typed more. "May I stay and help? Please? He trusts me." Maria started to protest, but Marcus cut her off. "Yes. God, yes. Whatever he needs. Whatever you need. Just, please, help me understand what's happening." The four of them sat in Marcus's study. Marcus behind his desk, Maria and Elena on the leather couch, Ethan's baby monitor between them broadcasting the sound of his breathing. "Start from the beginning," Marcus said, his voice hoarse from crying. "Tell me everything." Elena typed on her phone, while Maria translated aloud, her voice shaking. "I've been visiting Ethan for 3 months. Every night while Mama cleans. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I recognized something in him. I could see he was alone, like I've been alone. I just wanted him to know someone understood." 3 months, Marcus whispered. "You've been talking to him for 3 months?" Elena nodded and typed. "I told him about my life, about my father, about being different and feeling invisible, about how communication isn't just words. I taught him signs even though I knew he couldn't do them back. I read to him. I sat with him. That's all." "And he responded? Tonight was the first time?" "No. Little things." His breathing changed when I came in. His eyes tracked me. "Tonight was the first time he cried, but I've known for weeks that he was listening." Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on his desk, his head in his hands. "The doctors said the brain damage was severe, that he couldn't process complex thoughts or emotions, that we should prepare for him to stay this way permanently." Maria spoke up carefully. "Mr. Wellington, I'm so sorry. This was completely inappropriate. Elena should never have gone into your son's room. I should have watched her more carefully. We'll quit immediately." "No." Marcus's head snapped up. "No. Maria, your daughter just did what $100,000 worth of specialists couldn't do. She got my son to speak, to respond. If anyone's apologizing here, it's me." He turned to Elena, meeting her eyes directly for the first time. "Thank you. I don't understand how you did it, but thank you." Elena typed. "He did it himself? He just needed a reason." "What reason?" "To be seen, to be understood, to matter to someone who didn't pity him." The words hit Marcus like a punch. Pity. Was that what Ethan had sensed from him? From the doctors, the nurses, the endless parade of professionals? Not love, not hope, but pity? "Can you?" Marcus swallowed hard. "Can you keep visiting him? Please? I'll pay you, I'll." Elena was already shaking her head, typing, "Not for money. As a friend. He's my friend." Maria's eyes welled up. She signed something to Elena, who signed back. Mother and daughter communicated in their silent language, some private understanding passing between them. Finally, Maria said, "If you're sure, Mr. Wellington, Elena would be honored to continue visiting Ethan. But I need to know she won't be in trouble for this." "Trouble?" Marcus laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "She just gave me my son back. She can have anything in this house. She can." He stopped, overwhelmed again. Elena stood and moved to Marcus's desk. She typed carefully, "I don't want anything except permission to be his friend. Can you promise you'll let me visit him, even after he gets better? He's going to need friends who understand him." "I promise," Marcus said immediately. "God, I promise." Elena smiled, a real smile that transformed her serious face, and nodded. "One condition, though," Marcus added. "I want to watch, to understand, to learn whatever you're doing that's reaching him. Is that okay?" Elena considered, then typed, "Yes. But you have to let him set the pace. Don't push. He's been hiding for a reason, and he needs to feel safe coming out." "What reason?" Marcus asked desperately. "Why would he hide from me?" Elena met his eyes with a directness that was startling in a 12-year-old. She typed, "That's something you need to ask him when he's ready to answer." Marcus hired Dr. Patricia Chun the next day. She was one of the top neurologists in the country, specializing in locked-in syndrome and trauma-related disorders. She arrived with a team of specialists and a certainty that turned to confusion within hours. For 2 weeks, they observed Elena's visits with Ethan. They documented every interaction, every tiny response. They ran new scans, new tests, pushing the boundaries of what Marcus's money could buy. Ethan's responses grew clearer. He could move his fingers intentionally now, though the movements were weak. He could speak 3 or 4 words at a time, though speech exhausted him quickly. His eyes tracked people and objects. He could smile, though it was lopsided and took enormous effort. All of it happened primarily when Elena was present. Dr. Chun called Marcus into his study on day 14 of observation. Her expression was troubled. "Mr. Wellington, I need to be straight with you. Ethan's condition isn't what we thought. Marcus's heart stopped. What do you mean? The original diagnosis was incomplete. Yes, he has a spinal injury. Yes, he has some neural damage from the accident. But the extent of his paralysis, it's not entirely physical. I don't understand. Dr. Chen pulled up brain scans on her tablet. These are Ethan's scans from right after the accident. And these are current. The physical damage hasn't changed much. We've done what we can medically. But look at this. She pointed to highlighted regions. This is brain activity during normal rest. And this is his brain activity when Elena's in the room. The difference was dramatic. Whole regions lit up during Elena's visits that remained dark otherwise. What does that mean? It means Ethan's been experiencing a form of locked-in syndrome, but complicated by severe trauma-induced selective mutism and what we call psychogenic paralysis. Mr. Wellington, Ethan can move. He's been physically capable for months. He's choosing not to. The room spun. Choosing? Why the hell would he choose to stay paralyzed? Dr. Chen's expression was gentle but unyielding. Guilt, trauma, psychological self-punishment. Ethan blames himself for the accident, Mr. Wellington. And more than that, he believes he's not wanted. That's insane. He's my son. He's everything I have left. I know, but that's not what Ethan believes. She paused. Mr. Wellington, do you remember being in the hospital after the accident? Making phone calls? Barely. I was on painkillers in shock. Ethan was barely conscious, but he was aware. According to his responses during therapy, he heard you on the phone. You said... She checked her notes. I've lost everything that mattered. Do you remember saying that? Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Yes. He'd said that to his business partner, Richard, while standing in the hallway outside Ethan's hospital room. He'd been talking about Sophia, about his wife, his love, his everything. But Ethan, barely conscious in the room behind him, had heard, and thought Marcus meant him. Oh God! Marcus's legs gave out. He sat down hard, his hands shaking. He thought I meant I'd lost him, that he didn't matter. Combined with survivor's guilt, his mother died, he lived, it created a perfect storm of trauma. Ethan essentially chose to disappear rather than face a world where he felt responsible for his mother's death and unwanted by his father. But I want him, Marcus shouted, standing abruptly. He's my son. He's my whole world. How could he not know that? Did you tell him? Dr. Chun asked quietly. Did you tell him he mattered, that you loved him, that you needed him? Or did you talk to him like someone who'd already lost him? The question pierced Marcus like an arrow. He thought about all those nights sitting beside Ethan, talking into the silence. Had he spoken to his son or at a ghost? Had he communicated love or mourning? He treated Ethan like he was already gone. Elena reached him because she did the opposite, Dr. Chun continued. She treated him like a person, not a tragedy. She didn't pity him. She understood him. She gave him something worth coming back for. Genuine connection, true seeing, real friendship. She showed him he still matters as himself, not as a victim. Marcus put his face in his hands and wept. He'd failed his son. The accident had taken Sophia, but Marcus's grief had taken Ethan. He'd been so consumed by loss that he'd abandoned the one person who still needed him. Can he recover? Marcus asked through his tears. Physically, with intensive therapy and psychological support? Yes. The spinal injury will limit some function, but nothing like what we originally thought. He may never have full mobility, but he can have a life. A real life. If, and only if, he chooses it. How do I help him choose? You learn from Elena, Dr. Chun said simply. You learn to see him, not his disability. You learn to communicate in ways that transcend words. And most importantly, Mr. Wellington, you make sure he knows he's not just wanted, he's necessary. To you, to the world, to his own future. That night, Marcus sat in his office until 3 a.m., remembering. Sophia used to say he was a terrible communicator, that he showed love through actions but rarely words. Marcus, she'd say, laughing, Ethan needs to hear it. Don't just assume he knows. He'd always meant to get better at it. There was always tomorrow. Except there wasn't always tomorrow. Sophia was proof of that. But Ethan was here. Ethan was still here, trapped in silence of a different kind, waiting for his father to see him. Marcus made a decision. He stood, walked to Ethan's room, and slipped in quietly. Elena was there, as she was every night now, reading to Ethan from a book about dragons. Ethan's eyes were alert, focused on her, his expression showing subtle changes as the story progressed. Marcus watched them for a long moment. This child, this 12-year-old girl who couldn't speak, was teaching him how to be a father. It was time to become a student. Marcus waited until Elena finished the chapter. Ethan's eyes had started to droop, his blinks growing longer, the closest he could come to showing tiredness. "Elena," Marcus said softly. She turned, surprised. Maria had gone home an hour ago with Marcus's blessing, leaving Elena under his supervision. It was unprecedented, this trust, but everything about the past 2 weeks had been unprecedented. Elena pulled out her phone, ready to type. "I need to ask you something," Marcus said. He came fully into the room, pulling up a second chair beside Elena's. "A favor. A lesson, I guess." Elena tilted her head, curious. "Will you teach me?" Marcus gestured between Elena and Ethan. "This, whatever you do, however you communicate, I need to know how to reach him. Really reach him. The way you do." Elena's eyes widened. She looked at Ethan, whose gaze had sharpened, focusing on his father with an intensity Marcus hadn't seen before. She typed, "You want to learn sign language?" "Yes. And more than that, I want to understand how you see him, how you connect with him. Marcus's voice cracked. "I want to be the father he needs. Please, teach me." Elena studied him for a long moment, her dark eyes seeming to look through him. Then she nodded slowly and typed, "Okay, but you have to promise you'll be patient, with yourself and with Ethan. This isn't about fixing him. It's about meeting him where he is. I promise." Elena set her phone aside and held up her hands. She started with the basics, the alphabet, simple words. "Hello, friend, family, love." Marcus watched intently, mimicking her movements. His hands felt clumsy, too large, unpracticed. He fumbled the letters, mixed up similar signs. Again, Elena mouthed, patient and encouraging. She repeated the sign for love, and Marcus tried again, and again, and again. From the bed, Ethan watched his father struggle to learn this new language, and something in his expression shifted. The tiniest hint of hope, fragile as a soap bubble. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into learning sign language with the same intensity he'd once applied to building his company. He hired a private tutor for formal lessons. He watched videos. He practiced signs while sitting in traffic, during conference calls, at 2 a.m. when he couldn't sleep. But the real lessons happened in Ethan's room, with Elena as his teacher. She showed him that communication was more than hand shapes. It was facial expressions, body language, the quality of presence. It was sitting in comfortable silence. It was listening not just to words, but to what lived beneath them. "You're trying too hard," Elena typed one night after Marcus spent 20 minutes practicing a complex phrase. "Communication isn't about perfection. It's about connection. But I need to be able to tell him." Then tell him simply. "Here." Elena took Marcus's hand and shaped it into the sign for "I love you," pinky, index finger, and thumb extended. "This. Start with this. Say it every day. That's the foundation." Marcus practiced the sign, his throat tight. Something so simple, so essential, and he'd never learned it before. Never needed to, he'd thought. He could just say, "I love you," with his voice. But Ethan had needed more than voice. He needed to be met in his own language. That evening, while Elena watched, Marcus approached Ethan's bed and signed, slowly, carefully, "I love you." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. His hand, still weak but moving more each day, lifted slightly. With enormous effort, his fingers curved into a shaky approximation of the same sign. "I love you too." Marcus broke down. He gripped the bed rail, overcome, his carefully controlled emotions spilling over. "I'm sorry. God, Ethan, I'm so sorry. I've been such a fool." Elena tugged his sleeve and typed, "Don't apologize for the past. Show up for the present. That's what matters." 12 years old, Marcus thought wonderingly and wiser than he'd ever been. The transformation in Marcus was subtle at first, then impossible to miss. His assistant, Janitor, noticed he started leaving the office at 4 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. His business partners noted he declined evening meetings. His board members saw him delegate more, trust more, micromanage less. At home, Marcus became a student in every sense. He learned from Elena how to read Ethan's subtle cues, a change in breathing that meant discomfort, a shift in his gaze that indicated he wanted to communicate. He learned to ask yes or no questions that Ethan could answer with small finger movements. He learned to share control, to let Ethan guide the pace of his own recovery. Physical therapy took on new meaning with Ethan's cooperation. What the therapists had been doing to him, they now did with him. Progress was still slow. The spinal injury was real, the neural pathways damaged, but it was progress nonetheless. Ethan could move his right arm now, though the motion was limited. He could turn his head. He could speak in short sentences, though it exhausted him. He could smile, and the first time Marcus made him laugh, a small, breathy sound, but unmistakably a laugh, Marcus felt more accomplished than when his company had gone public. Elena continued her nightly visits, but now Marcus often joined them. The three of them would sit together, sometimes talking, sometimes signing, sometimes just existing in comfortable silence. One night, Marcus worked up the courage to ask the question that haunted him. "Ethan, why? Why did you hide? Help me understand." Ethan's response was halting, a combination of broken words and basic signs Elena had taught him. "Heard you. Hospital. Lost everything. Thought you meant me." "Never," Marcus signed emphatically. He'd learned the words specifically for this conversation. "Never you. Never. I was talking about Mom. About losing her. But you, Ethan, you're everything I have left. You're everything that matters. Mom died, my fault." Ethan's face crumpled. "No." Marcus took his son's hand, gentle but firm. "No. The accident was not your fault. A drunk driver crossed the median. That's whose fault it was. You were a victim, Ethan. Just like Mom. But you survived, and that's not something to feel guilty about. That's something to celebrate." Tears streamed down Ethan's face. "Miss her. I miss her too. Every single day. But she loved you more than anything in this world. And if she were here, you know what she'd say?" Ethan shook his head slightly. "She'd say, 'Get up, Ethan Marcus Wellington. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and go have an adventure. Life's too short to waste, and I didn't raise a quitter.'" Marcus smiled through his own tears. "She'd be so mad at both of us right now. Mad at me for wallowing in my grief and missing what was right in front of me. Mad at you for giving up. But she'd also be so proud of how brave you've been, fighting your way back." Elena, sitting quietly to the side, typed, "Your mom is proud. I know she is. And she sent me to make sure you didn't forget how to live." The three of them cried together, grieving and healing in the same breath. The victories came in increments, so small they'd be meaningless to anyone outside their circle. But to Marcus, they were everything. Ethan lifting a spoon halfway to his mouth before his hand shook too badly to continue. Marcus helping him finish, both of them grinning at the small triumph. Ethan signing, "Good morning," unprompted, his fingers clumsy but intentional. Ethan asking, in halting words, to be moved to the window so he could watch birds in the garden. Ethan laughing at a joke Elena told, the sound rusty but genuine. Ethan saying "Dad" clearly, without stuttering, his voice growing stronger. Marcus documented everything, not for doctors or insurance or legal purposes, but for memory, for the future, for the story he'd tell Ethan someday about how they found their way back to each other. He found old videos on his phone from before the accident. Ethan at his 6th birthday party, face covered in chocolate cake. Ethan's first day of 1st grade, nervous and excited. Ethan and Sophia baking cookies, flour everywhere, both of them laughing. Marcus played them for Ethan, narrating the memories, including Elena in the storytelling. "This was your 6th birthday, remember? You want a superhero theme, but Mom insisted on making the cake herself instead of ordering one. It was lopsided and the colors ran together, but you said it was the best cake ever." Ethan watched the videos with an intensity that suggested he was reclaiming pieces of himself he'd thought lost. She wasn't a good baker, Ethan said, smiling. No, Marcus agreed, laughing. She really wasn't. But she tried. That was her gift. She tried everything with her whole heart, even when she had no idea what she was doing. Like you, learning signs, Ethan said. Marcus looked at his son in surprise, then laughed harder. Yeah, exactly like that. Elena joined the laughter, silent but wholehearted, and Maria, who'd arrived for her shift, stood in the doorway watching with tears in her eyes. This, she thought, this is what Carlos died for. So children like Ethan could have second chances. So families could heal. One evening, Marcus found Elena in the kitchen before her visit with Ethan, working on something on her laptop. What's that? He asked. She turned the screen to show him. A program she was designing, some kind of communication interface with advanced predictive text and sign language recognition. For Ethan, Marcus asked. Elena typed, for everyone. For people who can't speak, can't move easily, can't communicate the traditional ways. To give them better options. Ethan inspired me. Marcus stared at the screen, at this 12-year-old's sophisticated code, and felt humbled again. Elena, this is incredible. Have you shown anyone? She shook her head. It's not finished yet. When it is, I want to help you patent it. Launch it. Get it to people who need it. Would you let me do that? Elena looked uncertain. I don't know anything about business. I do, and I owe you more than I can ever repay. Let me help you help others. Please. Elena considered, then nodded slowly. Only if Ethan helps too. It should be our project. Together. Deal, Marcus said. That night, he told Ethan about Elena's program and her offer to collaborate. Ethan's eyes lit up with something Marcus hadn't seen in nearly a year. Purpose. We'll make something that helps, Ethan said. Like Elena helped me. Yes, Marcus agreed. Exactly like that. He watched his son and Elena bend over the laptop together. Two kids who couldn't communicate in traditional ways, building a future where others like them would have better options, and felt something he'd thought dead 8 months ago. Hope. Marcus woke at dawn, unusual for him. The sun was just beginning to paint the sky pink and gold, and for the first time in months, he felt something other than dread at the start of a new day. He had a plan. In the kitchen at 7 a.m., he found Maria preparing to leave. She looked exhausted from the night shift, but smiled when she saw him. Good morning, Mr. Wellington. Marcus, he corrected gently. Please. After everything, I think we're past formalities. Maria's smile widened. Marcus, then. He poured 2 cups of coffee, handing her one. Where's Elena? Asleep in the guest room. I hope that's all right. She was up late with Ethan. More than all right. Maria, I need to talk to you. Please sit. Concern crossed Maria's face, but she sat at the kitchen island, her hands wrapped around the coffee mug. Marcus pulled an envelope from his pocket and set it between them. Maria stared at it like it might explode. What's this? Open it. With trembling hands, Maria opened the envelope and pulled out the papers inside. She read the first line, then the second, then looked up at Marcus with wide eyes. I don't understand. It's a job offer. I'm offering you a position as Ethan's full-time care coordinator. You'd oversee his medical team, manage his therapy schedules, handle his appointments, basically run the entire support structure he needs. The salary is $200,000 a year, plus health benefits for you and Elena, plus housing. Housing? The guest house. It's just sitting empty. For bedrooms, fully furnished. It's yours if you want it. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Marcus, I'm a cleaning woman. I don't know anything about medical coordination. You're a mother who's navigated a complex special needs system for 12 years. You're organized, compassionate, and you understand what Ethan needs in a way medical professionals don't. You'll have support. I'll hire assistants, consultants, whatever you need. But I trust you. More importantly, Ethan trusts you. I can't. She was crying now, overwhelmed. Maria, you and Elena gave me my son back. This isn't charity. This is me recognizing value and refusing to let it slip away. Please, say yes. But Maria was already shaking her head, standing. This is too much. We've already disrupted your life so much. Elena shouldn't have been in Ethan's room in the first place. I failed to supervise her, and now you feel obligated. Stop. Marcus stood too. You're right that Elena shouldn't have been in Ethan's room, because I should have invited her there. I should have been perceptive enough, human enough, to see what he needed. But I wasn't. I was so consumed by my own grief that I missed my son's. Elena saw what I was too blind to see. That's not a failure. That's a gift. One I'm desperately grateful for. Maria covered her face with her hands, sobbing. Please, Marcus said quietly. Let me do this. For Ethan. For Elena. For both of you. Before Maria could answer, a small sound came from the doorway. Elena stood there in borrowed pajamas, one of Ethan's old shirts that hung to her knees, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She took in the scene, her mother crying, Marcus pleading, the papers on the counter. Her hands moved in quick signs to her mother. What's wrong? Maria signed back, her movements jerky with emotion, explaining the offer. Elena's eyes went wide. She looked at Marcus, then at her mother, then at the papers. She picked them up, reading carefully, her lips moving as she parsed the legal language. Finally, she typed on her phone, Mama, Mr. Wellington is offering you a career, not charity. You've earned this. You've worked 3 jobs for 2 years and never complained. You've given me everything. Maybe it's time to receive something back. But Elena typed more. And I want to stay. I want to keep helping Ethan. He's my friend. Please. Maria looked between her daughter and Marcus, torn. If I say yes, nothing changes with Elena. She visits Ethan because she wants to, not because she has to. She's never an employee. She's a child. Agreed, Marcus said immediately. This has nothing to do with Elena's friendship with Ethan. That's sacred. I won't touch it. And we pay rent for the guest house. Absolutely not. It's part of the compensation package. Marcus. Maria. I'm a billionaire. The guest house, sitting empty, cost me more in maintenance than you'd ever pay in rent. Let me be practical here. Despite everything, Maria laughed. You're impossible. I prefer persistent. Maria looked at the papers again, at the salary that would change their lives, at the daughter who'd already bonded with this broken family. Okay, she whispered. Yes. Thank you. Marcus smiled. A real smile, the first in months. Thank you. Both of you. You've given me something money can't buy. Elena came around the counter and hugged Marcus. He froze for a moment, surprised, then wrapped his arms around her carefully. This small, silent girl who'd saved his son, saved him, saved their family. Thank you, he whispered into her hair. Thank you for seeing Ethan when I was too blind. Elena pulled back and typed. You weren't blind. You were grieving. There's a difference. But you're seeing him now. That's what matters. The transformation of the Wellington estate was remarkable. What had been a mausoleum was now alive, with laughter, with purpose, with hope. Maria had taken to her role as care coordinator with impressive skill, organizing Ethan's therapy teams, researching cutting-edge treatments, advocating fiercely for his needs. The guest house had become a real home, filled with their furniture, Elena's artwork on the walls, Maria's plants on every available surface. Ethan's progress was steady. He could sit up with support now. He could use his right arm with increasing control, though his left remained largely immobile. He could speak in full sentences, his voice growing stronger daily. He could smile, laugh, even tease. The biggest change was psychological. Ethan was present, engaged. He had opinions about his therapy, mostly complaints, requests for his schedule, more time with Elena and his dad, less time with a particularly strict physical therapist, and even jokes, terrible puns that made everyone groan. Marcus had restructured his entire life. He promoted his COO to handle day-to-day operations, freeing himself to work remotely most days. He had dinner with Ethan every night. He learned to cook, badly, but enthusiastically. He read bedtime stories, even though Ethan was almost 8 and insisted he was too old for them. Tell me anyway, Ethan would say, and Marcus would read until his son fell asleep. Elena visited daily after school, working with Ethan on the communication program they were developing together. It had grown beyond Elena's initial design into something truly revolutionary, an AI-assisted interface that could predict communication needs, translate between sign language and text, and adapt to individual users' capabilities. Marcus had connected them with his company's top engineers, who were amazed by Elena and Ethan's vision. The project had an official name now, Bridge, because it bridged the gap between different forms of communication. One evening, as Marcus watched Elena and Ethan work on Bridge, arguing good-naturedly about interface design, he felt Maria come up beside him. "Quite a pair," she said. "Yeah." Marcus smiled. "I keep forgetting they're just kids." Then Ethan makes a fart joke, and I remember. Maria laughed. "Elena's been happier these past months than I've seen her since Carlos died. You've given her purpose. Family. Thank you." "Maria, I think we're past thanking each other. We're just family now. Is that okay?" Maria's eyes glistened. "It's more than okay." In Ethan's room, Elena signed something that made Ethan laugh, then typed a response to show him on the laptop. They high-fived, carefully accounting for Ethan's limited mobility, and Marcus felt his heart swell. Sophia would love this, he thought. She'd love Elena's fire, Maria's strength, the family they'd built from tragedy. He'd started talking to Sophia's picture at night, not with grief, but with updates. Today, Ethan said his first bad word. He heard it from his physical therapist when she dropped something. He was very proud of himself. Elena scolded him in sign language, which was hilarious since she can't make sound to tell him off properly. "I think you'd find the whole thing amusing. I miss you. We all miss you. But we're okay, sophomore." Finally, we're okay. The auditorium was packed with families, advocates, medical professionals, and press. The annual Youth Advocacy Awards honored young people making a difference in accessibility and disability rights, and this year's keynote speakers were special. Backstage, Marcus adjusted Ethan's tie for the third time. "Dad, it's fine," Ethan said, batting his father's hands away. At 10 years old, Ethan had grown into a confident, articulate kid who happened to use a wheelchair. He could walk short distances with assistance, but the chair was easier for events like this. I know. I'm nervous." "You're not the one giving a speech. That's why I'm nervous." Elena appeared from the wings, wearing a deep blue dress that Maria had helped her pick out. At 15, she was poised and self-assured, her communication device, a sleek, custom-built version of Bridge, clipped to her wrist like jewelry. She signed to Ethan. "Ready?" Ethan signed back, "Born ready." Marcus watched them communicate in the fluid, natural sign language that had become second nature to their household. Maria appeared beside him, elegant in a simple black dress, and squeezed his arm. "They're going to be amazing," she said. "They already are," Marcus replied. The stage manager gave them the signal. Marcus wheeled Ethan onto the stage while Elena walked beside them, her head high. The audience erupted in applause. Ethan positioned himself at the microphone, Elena standing slightly behind. Marcus moved to the side, giving them the spotlight. "Good evening," Ethan began, his voice clear and strong. "My name is Ethan Wellington, and 3 years ago, I didn't want to be alive." The audience quieted immediately, leaning in. "I was 7 years old, and I'd survived a car accident that killed my mom. I was paralyzed, scared, and convinced that I'd lost everything, including my dad's love." Ethan glanced at Marcus, who had tears already streaming down his face. "I was wrong, but I couldn't see that then. So I hid. I retreated so far inside myself that everyone thought I was brain-damaged, unreachable, gone." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "Then a girl who couldn't speak taught me that communication has nothing to do with words." Elena Rodriguez was 12 years old when she decided that I was worth reaching. She didn't have fancy medical degrees or expensive equipment. She just had kindness, patience, and the understanding that comes from living with her own challenges. Ethan gestured to Elena, who stepped forward. She activated her device, the Bridge interface they designed together, and her words appeared on the large screens flanking the stage as a synthesized voice spoke them. Ethan and I were both trapped in different kinds of silence. But silence isn't the absence of communication. It's just a different language. We learned to speak to each other through signs, through presence, through showing up even when it was hard. And that connection saved both of us. The audience applauded, but Ethan raised his hand for quiet. We started designing Bridge because we realized there are millions of people out there who feel like we did, unheard, misunderstood, invisible. People with disabilities, people who are neurodivergent, people who communicate differently. We wanted to create something that would help them be seen. Elena's device continued. But more than technology, we learned that what people need most is someone willing to meet them where they are. Someone who sees their humanity before their limitations. Someone who believes they're worth the effort. My mom gave me life, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. But Elena gave me a reason to live it. She taught my dad how to be the father I needed. She showed us all that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. They have to be given freely from one human being to another. Elena signed something, and Ethan smiled. Elena wants me to tell you that I'm being too sentimental. But she also says, he paused as Elena typed. She says that every person in this room has the power to be someone's Elena. To notice the people others overlook. To reach out when it would be easier to walk past. To believe in someone's worth, even when they've stopped believing in themselves. The audience was silent, many wiping tears. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over, Ethan concluded. Today I'm standing here, well, sitting here, the audience laughed through their tears. Telling you that it's just beginning. Because of a girl who refused to let me disappear. Because of a dad who learned to see me again. Because of a community that believed we were worth supporting. Thank you for this award, but the Real recognition belongs to everyone who chooses connection over convenience, understanding over assumptions, and love over fear. The applause was deafening. People rose to their feet, some signing their applause in ASL, others simply clapping with tears streaming down their faces. Marcus joined Ethan and Elena on stage, Maria coming up beside them. The four of them stood together, an unconventional family built from tragedy and transformed by love, and accepted the award as a unit. Later, at the reception, reporters clamored for interviews. A major tech company wanted a license Bridge. A film producer asked about their story. But Ethan and Elena slipped away from the crowd, finding a quiet corner. Elena signed, too much attention. Ethan signed back, way too much. Want to get out of here? Elena grinned and nodded. They found Marcus and Maria, signed their request, and the four of them left the reception early, escaping to their favorite pizza place, a small, family-owned restaurant that knew them as regulars, not celebrities. Over pepperoni pizza and root beer floats, they laughed about Ethan's speech. You really call me out for the sentimental comment, he complained to Elena, debated their next project, a summer camp for kids with communication differences, and simply existed together as family. Remember when we first met? Ethan signed to Elena. You were so sneaky, visiting me at night. I wasn't sneaky, Elena's device protested. I was determined. There's a difference. You were both, Maria interjected, shaking her head. And you scare me half to death. Best rule-breaking ever, Marcus said, raising his glass. To Elena, who taught us all that the most important rules are the ones we break for love. They clinked glasses, two adults and two kids who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and chosen to build light together. That night, back at the Wellington estate, Marcus tucked Ethan in a bed, a ritual they'd maintained even as Ethan grew older and insisted he didn't need it. Dad, Ethan said as Marcus stood to leave. Yeah, buddy. Do you think Mom knows? About everything? About Elena and Maria? And how we're doing? Marcus sat back down on the edge of the bed. I think she knows. And I think she sent Elena to us. You believe that? I have to believe it. Because the alternative, that it was all random chance, seems impossible. Elena appearing at exactly the right time, with exactly the right heart, understanding exactly what you needed? That's not chance, Ethan. That's grace. Ethan smiled sleepily. I like that. Me too. Marcus kissed his son's forehead. Love you, buddy. Love you too, Dad. In the guest house, Elena sat at her window, looking up at the stars. She thought about her father, about the hero she'd never stopped missing, about how his sacrifice, running into fire to save others, had taught her that love means showing up even when it's hard. I showed up for Ethan. She signed to the stars, knowing her father couldn't see but signing anyway. Just like you taught me. And Dad, you should see what happened. We built a family. We're helping people. We're making a difference. I hope that makes you proud." The stars offered no answer, but Elena smiled anyway. She didn't need one. She could feel her father's pride, just as surely as she could feel Ethan's friendship and Marcus's gratitude and her mother's love. She was home. On the mantel in the Wellington living room, a new family photo sat beside Sophia's portrait. Marcus, Ethan, Maria, and Elena, all signing, "I love you," to the camera, all smiling with the kind of joy that only comes after surviving darkness. Two families, broken by loss, rebuilt by love. And in the space between what was lost and what was found, they discovered something precious. That family isn't just the people you're born to. It's the people who show up, who stay, who see you at your worst and choose you anyway. That's the real miracle. Not in the healing of bodies, but in the healing of hearts brave enough to remain open even after they've been shattered. And that's the story of how a mute girl and a paralyzed boy taught a billionaire what wealth really means. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something for me. Comment below and tell me your favorite part of this journey. Was it Elena's bravery? Marcus's transformation? The moment Ethan first spoke? I want to know what resonated with you. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, stories about real human connection, about second chances, about the power of showing up for each other, then please subscribe to this channel and hit that share button. Send this to someone who needs a reminder that miracles happen when we choose love over fear. Thank you for taking the time to watch this story with me. Your presence here matters. Your attention is a gift I don't take lightly. Now, click on the videos showing on your screen to watch more thrilling, emotional stories that will remind you what it means to be human. Until next time, remember, you have the power to be someone's Elena. Use it.